officially that time of the month where we see if I actually read all the books on my monthly TBR. So let's find out, shall we? I was pretty ambitious with my February TBR considering I am 7 months pregnant and am moving on March 2nd. So I had a lot of things to do this month, but I still feel like I managed to read quite a bit of books, good books at that. So I'm excited to share my thoughts on my February reads with you guys. One of the first books that I read this month was Unravel Me. This is the second book in the Shatter Me series. It is a YA dystopian novel. We follow the main character Juliet, who has this gift where if she touches someone, they die. So it could either be a gift or a curse depending on who you ask. If you ask Juliet, it's a curse. If you ask other characters in the book, they think it's a gift. So in this book, you kind of see her learning how to really tap into her power without hurting anyone. We also see a lot of the side characters from the first book again. We see Adam, we see Werner, and we also see my personal favorite character, Kenji, once again. I absolutely love Kenji. He honestly deserves his own book. That's how much I love him and his character. Just like in the Shatter Me book, the writing in this one was super addicting. I literally did not want to put it down. It was a super quick read. My only complaint with this book is that the characters Juliet and Adam were a tad bit annoying. I felt like they were really self-absorbed in their own relationship and in their own problems when literally the world was falling apart around them. I don't know, I just found their interactions to be annoying and a little bit too much. I did start to like Werner in this book. I absolutely despised him in the first book, but honestly, I am growing to like him. So I'm really excited to pick up the third book. I honestly give this book a 3 out of 5 stars. It was almost a 4-star read for me. I would recommend for you guys to check out the Shatter Me series if you haven't done so already. Another book that I read this month was Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I have been putting off reading this book for such a long time, and I finally read it this month, which I'm super happy about because I ended up loving it. It is a grumpy sunshine small town romance. We follow Naomi and Knox. Naomi obviously is this sunshine where literally her life has taken a 180. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, but she still finds a way to smile and help others. Knox is a complete grump that doesn't really want to deal with Naomi or anyone in his small town, and I just really liked the banter between Naomi and Knox. I feel like Lucy Score has really good banter between her two main characters, and I loved it. I also love that not only was this romance, but it also tackled a lot of other issues. Both the characters definitely had a lot of character development, and all the side characters were so enjoyable to read. I loved literally all the side characters. They were so fun. I can't wait to read the sequel to this book. I know it's out already. I think it just came out like last week. I'm going to pick it up for my March reads, but I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I honestly thought I was not going to like it because of how thick it was. When I purchased this, I was like, why is a romance book this thick? There's no reason for a romance book to be this thick, but I really did enjoy reading this. I really wasn't bored. My only complaint with this book is that I felt like Knox was a bit too much of a grump, and I didn't like how possessive he was towards Naomi in certain parts of the book. Also, I didn't really care for the spicy scenes in this book. I don't know if it's because I've read so many romance books at this point in my life that the spicy scenes in them feel so repetitive, and they've gotten to the point where they're a little bit cringy to me, but that's just my personal opinion. You may completely disagree, but I just didn't really care for the spicy scenes in this one. Next up, I read Daughter of the Siren Queen by Trisha Levenseller. This is the second book in the Daughter of the Pirate King series. I read the Daughter of the Pirate King book last year, really enjoyed it. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I'm giving this one the same rating, 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a cute little read, but I was a little bored at times, and I kind of wish the story was a little bit more fast-paced. But with that being said, I still enjoyed reading it. I still would recommend it. If you're unfamiliar with this series, it's basically a YA series. I think it's YA. I'm pretty sure it's YA. It follows Alosa and her mainly female pirate crew, which I love that the majority of her pirate crew are women, badass women at that. And it basically just follows them on a adventure, and they have a mission that they need to accomplish. I really enjoyed Alosa's character. She's very sassy. She doesn't take shit from anyone, which I like. And I just found out that there's going to be a third book in this series. I think it comes out later this year, so I'm super excited to read it. I'm definitely going to pick it up. This next book, you guys probably already know how I feel about it because I've talked about it in I think like 2 other videos this month. But the next book that I read was Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This is a childhood friends to lovers second chance romance. It also takes place in a small town, which I really like. At first, I was really enjoying this book despite it being friends to lovers. You guys already know how I feel about friends to lovers books. I'm not a fan of that trope whatsoever, but the 2 main characters in this book were actually pretty likable, and I was enjoying their dialogue with one another. I was enjoying the romance. It's also alternating timelines, so you get to see the past and the present as well, which I was enjoying. And then we got to the very end, and a certain trope, which I won't say what the trope was because I don't want to spoil the book for you in case you haven't read it, but there was a certain trope that was introduced at the very end that I just did not like, and it ruined the entire book for me, and I had to give this book a 2 out of 5 stars. But I'm glad that I finally read it because I've been holding on to this book for almost a year now, so now I can say that I gave it a chance and it just wasn't for me. It also reminded me a lot of Love in Other Words, which I did not like Love in Other Words at all, but for the most part I really did enjoy Every Summer After. But then we got to the end and I was like, nope, this book is just not the vibe for me. The next book that I read was The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. This is a thriller. Boy, is it actually a thriller. I cannot stand when a book is labeled as a thriller and there's nothing thrilling about it, and it's actually quite boring. This one actually had me at the edge of my seat from the very first page. It basically follows a housemaid who is hired by the Winchester family. Nina Winchester, who is the wife of Andrew Winchester, hires this maid to basically help her around the house, help her take care of her child. But the only thing is that Nina's behavior is actually quite odd. She creates these messes for the maid to pick up and clean up after. She makes up lies regarding her daughter's allergies and food habits. One day, the maid is trying to leave her bedroom in the attic, and she discovers that her bedroom door is actually locked from the outside and she can't get out. But she has a secret of her own, and I guess one less tool in her toolbox that the Winchesters have no idea about. And again, it's a very good thriller. There were a bunch of twists that I did not see coming. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. There is a sequel that's coming out in March, I believe, and I'm definitely going to pick up the sequel. I actually read 2 more books from Frida McFadden. I actually read them on the Kindle app on my phone because they were free. Well, they're included in my Prime membership monthly reads. The first one was The Locked Door, where the main character is actually the daughter of a infamous serial killer who was arrested when she was, I think, 11 years old. We flash forward years later, and the main character, Nora, is now a well-known, respected surgeon. The only problem is that someone starts killing women who look like her father's preferred victims. They start using his exact MO, so the police think that Nora, obviously the daughter of this infamous serial killer, has something to do with it, and Nora basically has to prove that she is innocent in all of this. This one was a really good thriller. I almost gave it 5 stars. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars was because there were a lot of unanswered questions. A lot of things happened in the book that I thought were going to be addressed at the very end, and they weren't. And I was like, who did that one thing in the book, and who was responsible for that happening, and how did they know? I just had a lot of questions. Like, if you read this book, then you probably are in the same boat. So for that reason, I only gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, but I absolutely loved it. And the third book that I read from her this month was Do Not Disturb. Again, Do Not Disturb was free on Amazon Prime Reading. I actually finished this one this morning, right before I sat down to film this. Do Not Disturb is another thriller. In this book, we follow Quinn Alexander, who has committed a crime. If she is caught, she's going to spend the rest of her life in prison, so she has no other choice but to flee. She actually ends up fleeing to this motel in the middle of a snowstorm. Little does she know that she's actually in a lot of danger. It's actually a psychological thriller, which I love a good psychological thriller book, and this one honestly was such a quick read for me. I think it's only like 256 pages, so it's fairly short, but it's like the perfect length. If it were any longer, I probably would have been bored with it, but since it was only 256 pages, it really was the perfect length. I did not guess any of the twists. Again, I'm finding with Frida's writing, it's impossible for me to actually guess the twist, which I absolutely love when I can't guess the twist in a thriller. The ending took me by complete surprise. I was in shock when I finally read who was behind everything in the book. Definitely would recommend. The only reason I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars is because it started off with a bang and then it kind of slowed down a bit and then it picked up again. So I'm only knocking off 1 star for those slow moments. It can honestly be a 4.5, but since Goodreads doesn't let me do 4.5 ratings, I'm just going to give it a solid 4. So if you haven't read those 2 books and you have Amazon Prime, definitely download the Kindle app so you can check out those 2 books. You won't have to pay extra. Moving on from the thrillers, we're going back into romance. Another book that I read this month was Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. This is a YA romance. Well, there's a little bit of romance in here, but romance is definitely not the focus. The main character, Lena, has recently lost her mother, so she is sent to live with her father for the summer in Italy. The only problem is that she's never even met her father. Prior to her mom getting sick, she never even knew who her father was, and her mother literally never spoke about her father. So obviously Lena is not happy about having to spend an entire summer with this stranger, and while she's in Italy, she finds her mom's journal and she basically gets to experience Italy with her mom's writing and gets to see what her mom experienced in Italy when she lived in that country for the first time as a young adult. And in the journal, she discovers a family secret that changes her life completely. I didn't think I was going to enjoy this book. I thought I was absolutely going to hate it because it is YA, but it was actually such a wholesome read and I absolutely loved it. I loved the scenery. I loved the main character, Lena. She had a lot of character development. I just find that the story was really sweet and wholesome. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars and I definitely would recommend for you guys to check this out. The next book that I read this month was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is a romance, enemies to lovers, and I did not enjoy this book. I am so sorry, you guys. I really thought I was going to love it. I had such high expectations for this book because I feel like a lot of people do in fact love it. I've mentioned this already in a couple different videos that I filmed talking about this book this month, but when I pick up a romance book, I don't want to read about politics. Like if I wanted to read about politics, I would turn on the news. That's not why I choose a romance book, and although I understand why the author incorporated politics, one of the main characters is the son of the president of the United States, so it makes sense that there has to be some politics in the book, but I just felt like the politics overshadowed the actual romance. I will say that I enjoyed the diversity in this book. All the characters, even the side characters, were super diverse. I love that there was LGBTQ plus representation, that one of the main characters is Hispanic. I loved all the diversity. I just didn't enjoy the politics. For that reason, I only give this book a 3 out of 5 stars. There is a movie or a TV show coming out on Amazon Prime. I am going to check it out because like I said, I did enjoy the romance between the 2 main characters. So hopefully the show or the movie, whatever it is, focuses on the romance and not so much on the politics. I feel like that would make the show or movie more enjoyable to me. We shall see. The next book that I read was The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is the first book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. I know I am so late in reading these books, but I finally read the first one and I'm so glad that I did because I loved it so much. This is a kind of grumpy sunshine workplace romance. It follows Rowan and Zara. Rowan is Zara's boss and they're insanely attracted to one another from the very moment that they meet, but obviously since Rowan is Zara's boss, he doesn't feel like he is able to cross that line with her. I love the 2 main characters' banter. I love the romance. It was also very deep in certain parts of the book. I know that the final book came out this month or maybe in January. I don't know when it came out. It came out this year and I've seen it literally everywhere and everyone is raving about it. So in March, I'm definitely going to pick up the second book to read and continue this series. My cat's right here. You want to say hi? The last book that I read this month was The Pact by Max Monroe, and I actually think it's 2 writers. It is a kind of grumpy sunshine, fake dating, well, fake marriage romance book. It's actually a romantic comedy and it was actually a pretty funny book, and overall I really enjoyed it. It has a really high rating on Goodreads, which is one of the reasons why I decided to download it and read it in the first place. I honestly give it a 3 out of 5 stars. It did drag just a little bit for me and it is quite spicy. From literally the very beginning of the book, there is a lot of spice, so definitely keep that in mind. If you're not into spicy books, maybe sit this one out because like I said, it is quite spicy. The authors actually warn you before you even start the book that the book is very spicy. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I don't know if I'm going to continue the series, if I'm being honest. This was actually the second book in a series. I didn't read the first one because that one wasn't free, but I don't really think I'm going to continue the rest of the series. Like, it was good, I enjoyed it, but I don't think it was anything special. For the most part, I think I read a lot of good books this month, and I did manage to read a lot of the books that I wanted to read this month, so I'm actually proud of myself for that, because normally I don't stick to my monthly TBRs at all. I'm such a mood reader, so it's hard for me to actually stick to my TBRs, but I did pretty good this month, and I'm super happy with all of my reads. Let me know in the comments below what books you read this month. What was your favorite book that you read this month? I would love to know. And again, that is pretty much it for today's video. Really hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I would love to have you a part of my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.